Hello, you beautiful people. I am back once again. Today, we are going to be doing a mystery case type thingamajig. And let me tell you, she's a good one, okay? So I'm not going to disappoint you guys. She is interesting. She is plot twisting. And she is here, okay? Let's get into it. Yeah. Funny enough, this case isn't based off a movie, but there's a movie about it. The movie is called The Girl in the Box. This case is also known as The Girl in the Box. That name is just so drawing. When you hear about a girl in a box, maybe it's just me, but like, she pulls you in, okay? On May 19th of 1977, 20-year-old Colleen Stan left her home in Oregon. Is it Oregon? It's Oregon. She's going to visit a friend of hers in California for like a birthday or something like that. And so she gets in her car, right? She's like, okay, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. But little does she know, her car doesn't want to start, right? Back in the 70s, hitchhiking was a really popular thing. Like, it wasn't unheard of. It really wasn't seen as dangerous just because it was so common. So she decides to hitchhike. So she catches a bunch of different, you know, those big trucks that, like, you know, people, what are they called? Are they just called trucks? With getting in these different trucks, she makes it about 130 miles. Right after she got out of the last truck, this group of 5 guys had like came up to her. Well, not came up to her, but they drove up to her and they were like, so you want to ride? But she wanted to be smart this time, okay? This isn't where it goes wrong yet. She was like, me, 5 guys, not a good idea. So she turns him down, blah, blah, blah. Maybe 10 minutes after this happened, a couple with this baby stopped and was like, you need a ride, homie? And she was like, yeah, like, that would be so great. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where it takes a turn and a plot and a twist. They stopped at this gas station about like 20 minutes into the trip, right? And she said that she went into the bathroom and she said that she heard this voice. She said she doesn't know if it was God, if it was Jesus, if it was a ghost, if it was a voice in her head. But they said, shorty, you need to go. This is not going to be okay. Something is going to happen to you and you're going to regret it. So do not get back in those car with those people, because it's going to be life-changing. And, well, the voice or whatever it was right. So she gets back in the car and she was sitting in the back seat by herself. The back seat was empty, and she said when she got in the car, there was like this wooden box type thing sitting next to her, but you know, she didn't really think anything of it, because why would she think that these people are gonna like take her captive? They asked her if they could go see these ice caves and stop and go see them, and she was like, yeah, that's fine. I mean, like, you guys are the ones giving me a ride, you know, who am I to tell you no? She should have told him no. I don't know if it would have made a difference, but still. Wife and the baby get out of the car and they're by this little creek, and she doesn't know where the man goes. He dipped. He was gone. He snuck up behind her and put that little box thing over her head. He was smart. He was a smart one, you know? You want to know why? I'm about to tell you. Because he insulated this box with carpet. Even if she tried to scream, no one was going to hear her. I mean, that's pretty smart. It's demented, but it's smart. Finally, they reached their destination in Red Oak, California. Nothing out of the blue, you know. They take her into the basement of this house. And this is where it gets a little creepy, freaky, all of the above. They take her and they like suspend her in the air. He beat her. Like, B-E-A-T, beat her. After this, she had lost consciousness. She said that she felt like she was in this box, this almost like the size of like a casket, but a rectangular box. And she was right. That's where she would be spending the next 7 years of her life. She was tortured daily. You're probably wondering who these people are, right? So the woman was Janice Hooker. Really, the only reason she participated was because she was in Colleen's shoes. She was Colleen before Colleen. She was beaten all the time by her husband. It was terrible. She grew up in a very strict household as a young girl. Cameron, that's the boy, Cameron Hooker, he was like her first boyfriend, and so she had never really known what a relationship was supposed to be like, or, you know, what love felt like. She also did suffer from epilepsy. She also did suffer from epilepsy and low self-esteem. Cameron was a very quiet individual, but he was very demented. On their first date, he had actually talked Colleen into letting him take off her clothes and suspending her up in the air from this tree, and he beat her. Are you freaking kidding me? They got married in 1975, so shortly after they had met, and from there the treatment really just got worse for Janice. And it got to the point where she could not take it anymore. They came to this agreement that if Janice could have a baby, that Cameron could keep a slave unwillingly, and the only condition that she had was that he was not allowed to have sex with her. About a week after Colleen had disappeared, her friends called her parents and said that she had never arrived, and her parents honestly just thought that she had like joined a cult or something. They really weren't worried about it. I mean, like I said, hitchhiking wasn't uncommon back then, but they said that was the last thing they ever thought had happened to her. And I'm going to tell you why this is the last thing they thought ever happened to her, because this story literally had me so shook. First 3 months that she was held captive, she did not leave the basement at all, and this was because Cameron wanted kind of to isolate her from the outside world and not let her have any outside influence besides what she was being around or being put around, you know, that way he could brainwash her, which he did. In January of 1978, Cameron had found this contract type thing in one of his pornography magazines, and basically it was a contract saying that whoever signed it was signing over their soul and their body to this person, and like this person would be their master and all this crazy stuff. Colleen did sign it, but the only reason she signed it was because Cameron had told her that there was this thing called the company, and it was basically this underground railroad, not underground railroad, underground like sex slave type organization. He said that this contract was created to like keep the slaves of the company intact and make sure that their behavior was good. I mean, think about it. You're in this box for 3 months. What he's saying makes sense with the situation. After she signed it, she was allowed to go upstairs a lot more, but she was only allowed to go upstairs to do housework. And you're thinking, what wife in their right mind would let their husband have a slave like that? And Janice was really okay with it. Number one, because she didn't have to do the housework anymore. And number two, she wasn't getting beaten as badly anymore. That doesn't mean that Janice still wasn't getting abused, because she was. It just wasn't as bad, so she didn't mind. Whenever he called attention, no matter what she was doing, she had to go to this archway in the house, take off all her clothes, and put her hands like this, and he would just beat her. And her slave name was Kay. Yeah. About a month later, Janice finally said that Cameron could have sex with Colleen. I think Colleen thought that he would kind of stick to their pact that he had. She said that is probably like the one thing that stuck with her and really kind of messed her up in the head the most. Hi guys. Don't we love the quality though? So a part of my footage just like decided not to be there, which is fine, you know, like she didn't want to show up. But this is crucial information that you guys need to know. Okay. 4 months later, Janice and Cameron moved into this trailer. They bought this acre of land, and it didn't have a basement. Cameron made Janice help him build this torture shed. Part of it was they have like this like old medieval rack. All your body parts are tied to it, and it stretches your body out. I literally hate myself. It's okay. But back to your regularly scheduled program. It was really starting to get to Janice how much time Cameron was spending with Colleen, and it definitely changed the dynamic of their relationship. Janice started to become very, very hateful towards Colleen. Anything she did, she would beat her for it. She would basically like lie about stuff that Colleen had done and would tell Cameron, and then she would get beaten for it. And she became very, very, very jealous. About 2 years after being held in captivity, Colleen did wear a collar type thing around her neck, and it was finally taken off. She was allowed to go on jogs by herself. She was allowed to work outside. And anybody is probably thinking, why did she not say something? Why did she not try to run away? And it's because she literally believed with everything in her heart that the company was real and that they were going to kill her and that they were going to kill her family. And she had become so brainwashed with the idea of her being a slave that that's all she knew. So she said that she used to pass people all the time and would not say anything to them. In March of 1981, Cameron said that the company had finally okayed Colleen to go see her family. He kind of did like a test of her trust, or like what would signify to him that she would be able to go, that she trusted him. He made her put a shotgun in her mouth and shoot it, and obviously it was empty. He said she could go, but if she tried to tell her family anything, that her and everybody in that house would die, and that her house was under 24-hour surveillance. On her way to see her family, he told her what to say if her parents asked her questions, and to say that he was her fiance. She gets to the house, she's seeing her family, she's obviously very happy. Her family asked her some questions, but she was being really discreet, and they didn't want to push her. They thought that if she had anything to say, she would say it, right? So literally less than 24 hours after she got there, calls the house and says, "I'm going to be there in 10 minutes, be ready." And it's so funny because when he got there, her dad's wife had actually taken a picture of Colleen and Cameron, and I'll insert it in here, and she just looks as happy as can be. How Cameron really made this go for as long as he did was because of the key to him was isolation. When she got back, all of her freedoms that she had earned were taken away from her, because he wanted to strip her of any happiness that she had gained from being with her family, and just to take it away and make her put her back in her place. In this trailer, you wonder where she slept. They had this waterbed, and he constructed this super tiny box that she spent most of her day in after she came back. But especially after she came back from seeing her family, she was put in there a lot. She was only let out at night to do stuff, just because, like I said, the key to him was brainwashing her, and that's exactly what he did. In 1984, Colleen convinced Cameron to let her go get a job. That way she could support the family, but really she just could not be in that house anymore. She hated staying in that box all day. That was literally her whole world. She gets this job. She's cleaning motel rooms not too far from the house. After she gets this job, she is allowed to sleep in the bathroom, but they chain her and they wrap the chain around the toilet. That way she can't get out. So her freedoms were coming back a little bit, if that's what you call freedom. Cameron had kind of gotten this high from knowing that he could pull this off. He was like, well, if I can pull this off with one person, I can pull it off with 2 or 3 or 4. So he announced this super big plan to build this huge dungeon and have all these slaves. And Janice did not like this at all. She was not a fan. She already didn't like the idea that she had to share her husband with one person, so she definitely was not gonna let him be shared with anybody else. As time goes on, Janice kind of feels bad for what she's put Colleen through, and they kind of started to build a friendship. She started to honestly feel really bad for what she was doing to Colleen. They cut her whole life off for 7 years. She felt so guilty that on August 9th of 1984, she went and visited the pastor of her church and told him everything that had happened. Shook. So right after she tells her pastor, she heads to the motel that Colleen is working at, and she tells her that everything is a lie. There is no company, nothing, it was all fake. And Colleen was traumatized. She had so many chances to leave, and she didn't. Before she left, she did buy a bus ticket, all that stuff. When she was at the bus station, she called Cameron one more time, and she told him, "I'm leaving, I'm never coming back." And Cameron broke down on the phone and started crying. Finally, she is able to return home with her family. They were asking her a lot of questions at where she had been and what had happened to her. At first, she didn't really want to get into the details of it, but she eventually opened up. While this is all happening, Janice finally leaves her husband and goes to the police. As she's telling the police all this, they did not believe her. They really didn't. They just didn't believe that such a thing could really happen. But they called Colleen, and she confirmed all of it. She went back to California for 2 days, and she was questioned by the police to get all the information that they could get from her about that 7-year time period, because there really was no timeline. She had no sense of time throughout a lot of it. On August 22nd of 1984, Cameron Hooker was arrested. They searched the house, but they found nothing that said that Colleen was held there against her will. And this is because, you know how Janice was like supposed to leave her husband? Well, she didn't. She was instructed by him to burn everything that would leave any trace to her being there non-willingly. But she done slipped up. They found like a pornography magazine that he had, and he himself had taken a picture of the contract that he made Colleen sign, and that's when it was just over for him. And when he got arrested, he didn't even question it. Like, he didn't deny anything. He was so sad about it. He was like, okay. Finally, the district attorney takes this case to trial, and he was indicted on 10 counts of rape and kidnapping. And Janice did agree to testify against her husband in return for her immunity. Colleen, when she went up on the stand, she was very shocked. Like, as she was repeating the story of what had happened to her, she was so shocked at her own actions and how she could have been so dumb, I guess, and like believed everything that he said. When Cameron goes on the stand, he basically says that he did kidnap her, but he did like offer to let her go, but that she didn't want to go because she fell in love with him. And the judge obviously did not believe this. He was found guilty and he was sentenced to over, I think, 104 years in prison, but he did get parole, so he is supposed to be released sometime in 2022. Don't go anywhere without anybody knowing. Don't hitchhike. Don't go with strangers, and don't tell them it's okay to stop at a cave, because it's not. So my ending footage didn't want to show up either, which is fine. Like, maybe I just need a new SIM card, or maybe I just need a brand new live. It's better quality than my last, little commercial. Here you go. I'm done. I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Stay tuned. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be great. Okay. Thank you guys for watching. Bye now.